Hello, all. Just wanted to give a brief little background on myself and kind of the series of events that led me to this type of study and ultimately to be teaching it here and now. And it kind of started in around 2011 or so. The idea, and I was big into exercise at the time, and came across the idea of the mind muscle connection. And that when lifting weights, if you just imagine that you're lifting heavier weights than you are, and you imagine focusing on the muscles, imagine your muscles growing, it will have a positive impact. And so I was kind of fascinated with this, and I tested it out and found it to be true. And this was just kind of like, what you can use your mind for physical growth, and then came across the ideas that even if you just without actually touching weights or just imagining lifting weights, you can continue to enhance muscular growth. And this is all fascinating to me, and I loved it. And also coming across the idea of like how to use your mind to even want to get to the gym, to kind of amp yourself up, to get motivated. And really found this fascinating, kind of dove into that almost surface level idea of mindset and what the mind can do for you. And then kind of fast forward to 2015, I knew I wanted to start my own business. So I started looking up books. Like, what should I learn? What do I need to understand to be able to succeed in business? And surprisingly, very few books were actually on business itself. The vast majority of books, the recommendations that I found online, had to do with your mind, how to use your mind to take control of yourself, and how to use your mind to have a positive impact on your results in your business. Again, really new subject to me, really fascinating, dove into it, and kind of instantly when I found that idea that our mind creates, that our thoughts are things, and finding this kind of across the board in terms of business leaders and just leaders of industry, leaders of movements, they all had this idea, this recognition that the mind really does create. And we need to have it in our mind first in order to experience it in life. This just opened up a whole world for me. And I was like, what is this about? And dove deep into the subject. And it kind of led into different fields of first just positive psychology of like, speak good to yourself, have good movements of thoughts within yourself. Then it kind of led to like, but why is this happening? Why is this effective? So then I started studying like neuroscience and what is actually happening within the brain and the idea of neuroplasticity and how we can literally physically change our brain based on how we use it, our thinking process, and just opening ourselves up to new things. And then kind of went deeper into that, but like, so how is it changing outside of me? How is it attracting these things to me? What is happening beyond within my brain? So then that kind of opened up the door to the quantum physics and how everything essentially vibrates. Everything does vibrate, and that there is a vast amount of empty space within every atom. And in that empty space, there is just a network of information. It's not nothing. There's a something, nothing physical, but there's a something there that carries the information and there's no real separation between anything. So this looks like a solid hand, but if you zoom in enough, it's a lot of empty space. And so then that opens up. So like, where is our consciousness? Where do we reside within ourselves? And this kind of can spin someone in a whirlwind, be like, wait, who am I? I'm not my physical body. I'm not my name. I'm not even my brain. Who am I? So this opened up the door to just the notion of after you get far enough down the line, it's like you have to get to the point of some type of spiritual study, because science can only go so far. Science doesn't really acknowledge what the consciousness is. So it has to turn to some form of spiritual study and practice. And all along the way, kind of the thing that opened me into meditation initially was when studying these books and who these leaders of business, it was what do they do consistently, or what is across the board that each of them a commonality found. And meditation was pretty much across the board. And I'm hearing not even just business, but then sports as well. Hearing LeBron, Derek Jeter, Kobe Bryant, all them, they are devoted meditation practitioners. And so it's like, if they're doing it and they're at the top of their games, Let me see what this is about. So I started practicing that. And initially, got to be honest, that it was very selfish intent. It was wanting to create business. It was wanting to build outside of me. And then what happens is, as you kind of peel those layers back, as you start to recognize the truth within yourself, you start to see that maybe these dreams aren't mine. Maybe this American dream, this chase, this build, this go get more wasn't really my dream after all. And so that kind of shook me up as I'm starting to see business grow and starting to see the results of put it on paper, absorb your mind, make it your own. As I start to see these things come into fruition, and it's like you can start to play the game. Well, why did this happen? So then what? Then what? And as you start to look farther and farther, and you start to ultimately get to, what do I want the end of my life to look like? That's a completely different story, a completely different angle of how to approach life. And so that it kind of really rattled my foundation that I thought was solid, but really came to find out that I was building on pebbles, and it was just a rocky, an unstable foundation. And it really hit me that the American dream isn't my dream. Like, yes, the idea to be able to go and build and do things on our own is beautiful, but just the way that I took it, that I understood it, was more is better, money is all. And that clearly doesn't take long to realize that that is not the way. And so as diving into these spiritual practices and these different traditions that are rooted thousands and thousands of years back, start to understand that the recognition of who we are and what we are at our core is the most important thing. And yes, as we start to understand that, we can impact our lives in a more fruitful, positive way, because we start to connect with what is that spark of consciousness, that spark of light, that spark of divinity within us. How can we get access to that? And how can we allow that to flow into our life in a more abundant way? Because it is not the external things that are going to fill the internal. We need to fill that internal first, and then allow the external to fall into place. So those things along the way kind of really got me into this. And so my first business being personal training, I still knew I wanted to help people. And I thought that was it. It's like, if I could get people to exercise, then life is good. And life does get better with exercise. We know this. Then kind of went into the nutrition route and was like, plant-based eating. This is it. If people just ate and exercised, it would be perfect. But all along the way, behind the scenes, I was studying this mindset stuff, this mentalism stuff, this notion of what are we doing with our mind and how is that affecting our life. And so doing that, I kind of knew that I'm holding back. I'm not truly giving people what they need. Like, yes, exercise, surface level, nutrition, surface level. And that nutrition, I guess, is under the scenes in a sense because it gets within the body. But I knew all along the way that if people really had a better sense of who they are and what they are capable of, this exercise and nutrition would fall into place. Because a part of it, I found that why are people struggling to want to take care of themselves? Why are people struggling to want to put the right things into their body? It's because we've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten our worth. We've forgotten that we deserve a life of beauty, a life of abundance, a life of joy. We've forgotten just the sacred temple that this body is. And has been, for me, the practice of meditation, has been the understanding of so much of the spiritual studies that there is a light of truth, a light of divinity. There is perfection within us all. And it has been my practice and understanding and deep diving into this subject that, I've known from the jump that I want to start this. The first book I opened, and when it just clicked, Thoughts Are Things, something in me said, I'm going to teach this. Immediately thought that. Yet it's been some time for me to really recognize its truths, recognize its applicable parts, the practical parts to be able to communicate. And I guess also for me, and most importantly, is to be able to have stepped into that recognition that there is a light within us that we all deeply desire to shine, that we deeply desire to make our own, that we deeply desire to share with the world. And I hope that I am able to allow you to tap into that light. I hope that I am able to maintain the light within me. And I hope that we can all shine our light on the world. May this find you well, and look forward to talking to you soon. Cheers.